Thank you and good morning. Today we have, through this hearing, we will have a couple of processes that we must follow. First off, we will have the appeal read into the record. This hearing today is being live streamed and recorded as well. So I would ask that when you do address the board or when you want to speak is get as close to this microphone as possible. There's a button that looks like a face with a voice speaking. And if you can make sure that's on, sometimes you'll see a red ring around the microphone, sometimes you won't. But would you please speak into that because this is being recorded and live. This hearing will be addressing all information that is presented to us today and in the pre-read package that we received prior to this hearing. So all information will be heard here within this room. Our decision will be made on all the information that we receive in this room, questions answered, and any information that's presented to us today. So with that, I will turn over to the clerk to read the appeal into the session. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board members for this afternoon are our chairman, Mr. Brad Robson, and we have board members, Ms. Marcia Reed, Mr. Byrne Damon, Mr. Ted Mills, and Mr. Chuck Storms. And we have with us today Councillor R.D. McHugh representing council, and myself, Melanie Michaud, the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Clerk. Does anyone have any objections to the board members this morning? Seeing none, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So the process will be that we'll have the county present, and then we'll have the appellant and then the applicant present their information, and the questions will be made, any comments and questions will be made through to myself. As the chairperson for this meeting, I really like to make sure that we're organized and we have every question answered and every bit of information that you'd like to present to us provided. And then at that time, we will close the hearing and we will then deliberate, and within a minimum of 15 days, we will have the results presented to those in the hearing at the moment. So with that, I will turn over to the county representative for their presentation.
Thank you and good morning, Chair and Board. I'm going to try to share my screen. And the sharing is not turned on.
For those of you that may be watching over the internet, we are just having little technical difficulties here in sharing the screen, which is now being resolved.
I think we're ready to go now. So good morning. My name is Teresa Chipchase. I'm a Planning and Development Officer with Foothills County. I'll be speaking on behalf of the municipality, providing the background for the appeal that's in front of you today. Also with me are Foothills County Councillor Mr. R.D. McHugh and Engineering Technologist Patrick Antle. For an overview of my presentation before I begin, I will provide the board with an overview of the land use and subdivision proposals that were refused by council and council sitting as the subdivision approving authority, leading into the refusal that led to the appeal, following with the policy that formulated the municipality's decision. To provide the board with an overall indication of the location of the land, the property is located west of a popular tourist destination known as the Saskatoon Farm, which is owned by the appellants. It is also directly north of 338th Avenue East, 0.3 kilometers east of 80th Street East, and 2 kilometers east of the Okotoks town boundary and Highway 2, as shown on the map on the screen by the red star. The land use application that was provided to council as the land use authority is shown on the site plan on the screen. The application proposed redesignation of a portion of the appellant's property from the agricultural district to the country residential district. The redesignation, if it had been approved by council, was to facilitate the future subdivision of two 3.60 acre lots, as shown in green, one 7.6 acre lot is shown in green, and one 4.35 acre lot is shown in green, all north of 338th Avenue East. This was leaving an 80.36 acre agricultural district balance parcel that is shown in blue, also north of 338th Avenue. The application for redesignation of the land from the agricultural district to the country residential district was refused by council on November 26, 2025. As the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board only has authority to make a decision on a subdivision application, the appellants submitted their subdivision, requesting the subdivision approving authority consider the subdivision of what was to be 4 non-compliant agricultural district lots. The application was refused as the redesignation required to rezone a portion of the property from the agricultural district to the country residential district had been refused, and therefore the subdivision could not comply with Section 65412 of the Municipal Government Act, Section 12.1.6.2a of the Agricultural District of the county's land use bylaw, and could not conform with the minimum parcel size for the agricultural district of the county's land use bylaw. The application was also refused as it promoted the fragmentation of agricultural lands, which is discouraged within the policies of the county's municipal development plan. The appellant's proposal also provided a complicated access management strategy, beginning on the west side of the property, proposing a 30-meter wide panhandle to the balance as shown here in green, with a common approach to be constructed from 338th Avenue East as access to Lot 1 and the panhandle as shown by the red arrow. Moving to the east side of the property, the appellant proposed to survey out a 30 by 30 meter road plan in the location shown here in blue, providing approach locations for all lots as shown here by the red arrows. Lot 4 was further to connect to the road plan block via a 15-meter wide panhandle on the west side of the lot here in green, with an additional access to the balance parcel to be provided by a 15-meter wide panhandle, also as shown here in green. Finally, the appellant proposed an access right-of-way be registered over the 15-meter panhandle to Lot 4, as shown here in orange, which was to facilitate the provision of land should further subdivision be approved on the balance parcel in the future and a road need to be constructed or extended in this location. The access strategy as proposed by the appellant did not meet the county's road construction standards. As the access management proposed by the appellant did not meet the county's road construction standards, The county's Public Works Department provided that should the appellant's application be approved by the board or by council at the time, as the land use authority, access on the west side was acceptable to their department as shown on the screen, but access management on the east side of the property needed to meet the county's road construction standards. Public Works provided that in accordance with those standards, an internal road would need to be constructed as accesses to lots 2, 3, and 4 and the east balance as illustrated here in blue, with a temporary access right-of-way over that portion of the cul-de-sac bulb that extends into lots 3 and 4 here, and a road acquisition agreement registered over the remainder of the boundary of Lot 4, as shown here in red, to extend that road in the future should need be. For visual reference of the accesses proposed, this is the existing approach to the west side of the appellant's property, which was to provide the 30-meter wide panhandle, and on the west side of the balance, 30-meter wide panhandle and the approach to Lot 1. On the west side of the balance, you would see the approximate location of the additional panhandle. Moving east of the last photo along 338th, this is the existing access on the east side of the property that was proposed to include the 30 by 30 meter road right-of-way and the panhandle driveways as proposed by the appellant, or to include the standard internal road development in keeping with the county's road construction standards as recommended by the Public Works Department. To give the board an overall picture of the appellant's lands, they are predominantly flat to slightly rolling grasslands. Whoops, that's moving forward on me. To rolling grasslands that were at one time in hay production on the portions north of the yard site. Outside of the grasslands, there is a small area of overland drainage in the northeast corner. The yard site contains a residence with a detached garage, along with a shop and a barn and a mezzanine that is attached to the walls of what was once an indoor riding arena, along with a number of horse shelters that are throughout the yard site. There are numerous tree species that have been planted throughout surrounding the yard site, lining the driveways, and running east to west between the barn and the east boundary of the property. This is a close-up of the structures on the site, which includes the arena structure that no longer has a roof, with the barn to the north and the mezzanine to the east, and then the other additional structures in the yard. The board may have noticed within the staff report that was provided in the county submission, which was also provided to council, that in 2017, first reading was granted to a rezoning application to change the land use for this parcel from agricultural district to direct control district number 29 in order to allow an existing arena to be brought into compliance. The photo is of that arena facing west from its eastern end. The first reading was to allow the 18,000 square foot arena with its 2,200 square foot attached barn and 800 square foot suite within the mezzanine portion of the structure to be used as a limited public arena based on the parameters that are shown on the screen. It's been determined that no approvals are in place for this existing arena, nor for the suite that's in the mezzanine, which is the portion of the structure that you see here, or to allow for the barn addition, which is shown here. Therefore, a condition of first reading for land use a change required the appellant to obtain all applicable code and permit requirements before council would further consider the number of non-resident users that would be allowed in this building before they would allow any further use of the mezzanine as a residence. So in 2023, the roof of this arena collapsed, and bylaw 95-2017, which granted first reading to that rezoning application, and the arena, barn, and mezzanine expired. Upon conversing with the appellant's agent prior to and at the public hearing for the land use application, it was asked whether the mezzanine was still being used as a residence. The county was informed that while the mezzanine, shown in bright green on the screen, was no longer being used for housing, The barn, shown in dark green, attached to the north side of the arena structure, was now being used for employee housing. The landowner's agent provided at that hearing that all necessary requirements to ensure the barn could be considered as a second residence on the property would be provided. To date, no applications have been brought forward to the county to bring this use into compliance. The board will therefore have noted within the recommended conditions provided that should the application be approved, that the appropriate code requirements and permits are to be obtained for occupancy of this barn as a second residence on the balanced parcel to the satisfaction of the county and the county's building department. So to give the board some visual representation of the site, this is a property facing east to northeast towards the shop that's located east of the arena. This is facing north, north of the arena. And this is facing south towards 338th Avenue East. The existing yard site is here to the right. The area that was to contain lots 1 and 2 is approximately here, with lots 3 and 4 approximately here. The proposed 15-meter panhandle to lot 4 was to be located here, with the proposed 15-meter panhandle to the east portion of the balance here. This is also the area that Public Works is requesting that the appellants construct the internal road as access to all lots in the balance, should the application, the appeal be overturned. Facing east from the last slide, the area where lots 1 and 2 were to be located is here to the left of the screen, with the balance north and slightly west of those lots here. And facing north from 338th Avenue, lots 1 and 2 would be in the foreground here, with lots 3 and 4 to the far right and the balance to the far background. So for an overview of the timeline that brings us to today's appeal hearing, the application for subdivision was provided by the appellant on April 9th, 2026, and deemed to be complete on April 20th, 2026. The application was circulated to agencies, including those required by the province, for 30 days on April 30th, 2026. The application for subdivision was provided to the Subdivision Approving Authority on June 3rd, 2026, and was refused. The appellant appealed to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board on June 15th, 2026. As previously discussed, the subdivision was refused by the SSA on June 26, 2026, with the decision addressing with respect to the Municipal Government Act, as well as the county's statutory documents, which are its Municipal Development Plan and its Land Use Bylaw, outlining fragmentation of agricultural land, conservation and protection of farmland from conversion, no approved land use designation allowing for the subdivision, and the inability for the lots proposed to meet the minimum parcel size of the agricultural district. This leaves me to discuss the policy which formed the basis of the decision of council as the land use authority, which led to the refusal of the subdivision, with the understanding that today's hearing is to determine whether or not the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board will consider upholding, overturning, or revising the decision of the subdivision authority regarding the subdivision refusal. The municipality considers the application to be inconsistent with the Municipal Government Act, which is a statutory provincial document which regulates how municipalities are funded and how they govern and plan for growth. With respect to the MGA, under Part 17, Division 7, Section 6541A, 1B, and Section 652B, the municipality contends that the lands are not suitable for the residential purposes, that the application does not conform with the county's statutory documents and cannot comply with the prescribed uses of the agricultural district within the county's land use bylaw by creating non-compliant agricultural district parcels which cannot meet the minimum parcel size required for the agricultural district and would allow permitted uses of the agricultural district that are non-compatible with the parcel sizes proposed. The municipality also considers the application to be inconsistent with the county's municipal development plan, which is a statutory document adopted by the county in 2010. The goal and objectives of the agricultural section of this document strongly articulate that protection of agricultural land, preservation of agricultural land, and minimizing the loss of agricultural land are priorities for the county. Further, the SSA noted that the agricultural policies within the statutory municipal development plan, which provide that all lands in the MD are deemed to be agricultural unless zoned for other uses, and that maintaining the integrity of the agricultural land base is to be supported, and fragmentation of agricultural land is to be discouraged. With respect to the county's land use bylaw, specifically section 6.1.3 regarding redesignation of property, the board is to be aware that redesignation of land is the authority of the county's council, and in order to redesignate land in the county, council must first approve and grant 3 readings to a bylaw to do so. No bylaw was approved rezoning this land from agricultural district to country residential district. Therefore, the appeal board, although it may provide a decision on the subdivision, does not have the authority to grant it the appropriate land use. Therefore, should you choose to approve this application, you will be creating non-compliant agricultural district parcels. Non-compliant agricultural parcels would be contrary to Section 6542B of the Municipal Government Act, which states that in order to approve the subdivision must conform with the uses prescribed for that land in the land use bylaw. Highlighted in red are those permitted uses that would have to be approved if requested on these lots, which would either not be allowed or would be discretionary in more appropriate districts such as the country residential district. These uses would be agricultural specialty, dugouts, type 2 home-based businesses, and detached secondary suites. Finally, the lots will not meet the minimum parcel size for the agricultural district, which is 21 acres, which does not comply with the requirements of Section 6541 of the Municipal Government Act, which provides that the proposed subdivision must conform with the provisions of the land use bylaw. The appellant's submission has provided the inclusion of a 2-lot subdivision as well that was granted first reading on October 7th, 2010. It expired October 7th, 2012, as the applicants did not finalize this approval. Further to the expiry, the board should also be aware with this application that it was approved prior to the introduction of the county's current land use bylaw and before amendments were made to the current municipal development plan. Finally, it should be noted that Foothills County does not provide decisions based on precedent, but applies policy based on the individual merits of the application. Therefore, the past application has no relevance on the current application. In review of recent decisions, specifically from the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, or LPRT for short, this board has provided decisions on a considerable number of appeals having significant experience with various municipal and provincial policies. The LPRT is the SDAB's provincial counterpart with regards to subdivision appeals, and what their recent decisions have consistently provided is that without appropriate land use in place, their board would not exercise discretion to allow a variance to the minimum parcel size, further providing that the purpose of the agricultural district is to promote agricultural land uses, and finally, considering that perpetuating country residential use on agriculturally zoned lands was not the intent of the agricultural district. In Board Order S25-/Willow-MD-018, which is a 2026 decision on appeal in the MD of Willow Creek with a landowner. Again, the board is reluctant here to accept the variance in size requested under this appeal, further indicating that allowing further subdivision will continue to erode the parcel's agricultural value and its ability to accommodate the types of operation that are intended under the agricultural district. It goes on to provide that the board must take a long-term view of effects of approving substantially undersized agricultural parcels. And finally, and equally as important, while it sympathizes with the personal reasons for the appeal, the board must provide its decision based on land use planning reasons. In keeping with the policies it is tasked with upholding, and there was no land use planning reasons provided in this decision to waive the county's land use bylaw standards. Closing by saying they needed to find an appropriate district that would be more in keeping with the proposed use density and new parcel sizes. In Board Order S25, Mountain View County 027, which was an appeal in Mountain View County, who has a very similar land use bylaw to Foothills. The LPERT further establishes that allowing redesignation conflicts with the purpose and intent of the agricultural district, which is to conserve agricultural land, even less productive land for agricultural uses. This order goes on to provide that varying the minimum parcel size is not conducive to the stated purpose of the agricultural district, and allowing country residential uses on agriculturally zoned parcels would not meet the provisions of the agricultural district. This order, and typical of other LPERT orders, the LPRT under the MGA has the discretion to vary the standards within a land use bylaw. However, as they state in this order, without redesignation to the country residential land use district, the subdivision does not meet the use provisions of the land use bylaw, which is the same within Foothills County's land use bylaw. This order also provides that the minimum parcel size of the district was established to ensure there was sufficient land base for agricultural pursuits to be provided. The proposal intends to convert agricultural land to residential uses, which is not in keeping with the purpose and intent of the agricultural district, with insufficient planning reasons provided to the board to exercise its discretion to vary the minimum parcel size, and in that the board denied the appeal. Finally, in SDAB order S01-2025, the local board considered the subdivision of 1 5-acre non-compliant agricultural district parcel, whereby in this decision as well, the board upheld council's decision to refuse the subdivision. They did approve the boundary adjustment, but the subdivision was not approved. And again, minimum parcel size was one of the reasons for denying that. I will now ask Councillor McHugh if there is anything you would like to add at this time, and Mr. Antle if there's anything he would like to add as well. And outside of that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Chipchase. Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the planning officer started off with the list of compliance issues that exist on this title, and I think that is a big factor in council decision. In the public hearing, it was brought forward that these subdivisions are needed for additional housing, so it's a little hard to consider that when there are compliance issues still remaining on the subject title. Servicing in this area is a big consideration. 338th, of course, is an extremely busy road servicing the tourist attraction at the end. The alternate access out of this area is 80th Street. It remains MRO. It has been an objective of council to get that up to speed. So it is chip seal and divided, and there's topography issues with that road. So to add more traffic onto 338th, which is already busy without adequate roads in place to service the traffic that is excessive on 338th with the intersection at Highway 2, becomes complicated. We continue to wait for design from Alberta Transportation on hopefully an overpass that will be built, hopefully sooner than later. That's Alberta Transportation, and extremely difficult to say if that is a 4-year timeline or a 10-year timeline to solve some of the congestion in this area. So I mentioned that because it makes it very difficult to service this due to its proximity to the Highwood River. Emergency access and egresses into this area can be complicated. This parcel is obviously surrounded on 3 sides by complete agricultural operations. Yes, there has been development in this area related to CR. When we look, I'm sure it'll be mentioned that this is the central district as the growth engine of the municipality. I think when you consider that, we do have our land use bylaw, our MDP, but another part of that are ASPs. And I think that the council is looking at to reduce the strains on the municipality in the central district, that these are accompanied more with ASPs so that the servicing requirements, emergency services can all be addressed properly and built in the proper spot as to alleviate the fragmentation of agricultural lands without adequate servicing to provide the services that country residential parcels need. I think it is important to consider we have the growth management strategy still has a lot of homework to be done. We have a central district, the boundary that's drawn right on the Highwood River. And if you look in the appendixes, there's all kinds of homework to be done on applying what the district plan for the central district would look like. That remains incomplete. Taking an inventory of the natural capital areas of the municipality remains incomplete. And I think I would leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments?
Outside of closing comments, I think that's where the county will rest.
Thank you. To the board members, are there any questions to any information that's been presented so far? Okay, hearing none, we will, because of the complexity of the package that we've received, I can affirm that we have reviewed it in detail to this particular moment. And because this is an application, or sorry, an applicant and an appellant in the same situation, I'd also like to remind you that all comments are to be made through the chair, not to each other. And please identify yourself when you are making a comment so we know from whom and where it's coming from. So to that, we will continue on with the hearing where we will hear from the appellant who is an applicant on record for this situation. So if you could please identify yourself and speak into the microphone, and we will look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Christy Bunder, and I'm a planning consultant. And with me is Austin Hammer. He is a son of the landowner. Apologize for Austin's lateness. He was going to join online and wasn't able to, so he ripped in here. So we've all had a morning, I guess. I do have a cross-reference sheet for my evidence package. I'm happy to provide the board but if you want to consider it a late submission, I don't have to provide it. It just might help cross-reference the materials. So I'll go through what I've got here and you can decide if you'd like that.
If you have enough copies to present to us today, Ms. Buhner, feel free.
Bunder, and yes, I do.
Oh, Bunder, sorry, thank you.
Just forget that there's an E. This is just. Oh, thank you, Tristan. Okay, I'll load my presentation and we'll start. It looks like I also need sharing privileges.
Sorry, didn't hear that last comment.
I needed sharing privileges, but I did receive them, so I'm good to go here. And I note that there's no one in the gallery outside of administration today. So with that, I might not be as crazy detailed as I usually am, but I am crazy detailed at these. So bear with me. Thank you, Chief. This is our appeal to the refusal of the subdivision application, as was overviewed by Mrs. Chip Chase. With this presentation, I will give you an overview and a history, and I won't be repetitive of what Mrs. Chip Chase has done. Be mindful of your time here today. I'm going to go over the proposed site plan, transportation access considerations, servicing considerations, and engagement summary, and then I also will be going through some policy. This is located approximately 4 kilometers northeast of the town of Okotoks, and I do see an error on my map, which I will point out just in fairness. This parcel here of Dr. Weber's is agricultural. It is not to be yellow, and I apologize for that mistake. Where everything else is correct. We're typically just trying to show council the level of fragmentation. I'm sorry, the appeal board, the level of fragmentation in the area in relation to this site. The existing access is off 338th Avenue, which connects to Highway 2, providing access to a regional corridor. It is bordered on the northeast and south by country residential and agricultural parcels. The application we believed is suitable for the area for the following reasons. 4 new lots were being added to a balance. The balance is 80 acres and would be maintained as agriculture. This would also result in less than 32 lots on the quarter section, which aligns with the density section under 13.1.62A, which is the CR density section. It is in the central district where the county directs development and is on a quarter section with an established pattern of fragmentation. If this quarter was to remain ag, why was it allowed to subdivide? This aligns with the MDP direction to fragment where fragmentation already is. The previous council had 2 lots approved, which expired, and Mrs. Chip Chase has gone over that. The application received no objections. Not one person from the 22 lot subdivision on this quarter section opposed. Not one farmer came to this and said, you're going to ruin my agricultural operation. There was absolutely no objections. In terms of the land use context, it is on this fragmented quarter section. It is surrounded by country residential lots to the west. The proposed lots are not contiguous to any large-scale agricultural operations. The 4 additional lots would bring the total to 27 on the quarter, which I'd mentioned is within the density provision of the land use bylaw. And the balance remains at 80 acres, which allows for a continued agricultural use. The parcels are each sized to allow for animal units and hobby farming. So a 4 and 5 acre parcel are allowed an animal unit, any animal unit. So one animal unit could be 1 horse, 1 animal unit could be a cow-calf pair. They are allowed to support an animal unit. There are no restrictions based on topo, drainage, or anything that preclude diversification and small farm operations in this location. The definition of agriculture includes the word diversification in both the MDP and the land use bylaw. People acquiring these parcels are employees of Saskatoon and will work on the farm and can establish small hobby farms here. In terms of the existing conditions, I want to overview the site. It's not complicated. It's been in transition for a number of years. There is a residence, which we've identified at this location. There's a detached garage. There are horse shelters, both within the parcel and outside the parcel, and a shop. Put my pointer on it. There's a CCAN, which is permitted on a parcel, of 21 acres or greater. An arena with an attached barn, and as Mrs. Chip Chase indicated, the roof in that arena has collapsed. There are 2 existing horse shelters, which are to be removed from lots 3 and 4. Per table 4217A of the land use bylaw, there are no size requirements for accessory buildings located on an agricultural parcel with an agricultural use. There is an existing CCAN on the subject site will remain, with regard, as per section 42113, the CCAN is permitted on the parcel of 21 acres or more, provided it meets setback requirements. Existing vegetation will be maintained as much as possible. The subject parcel has 5 wells, 2 wells utilized by lots 1 and 2. So when these previous lots were approved, the landowner at the time, who wasn't the Hammers, drilled these wells in support of those lots, and they actually are passable wells. Only 2 new additional wells would be drilled for lots 3 and 4. In terms of our proposed site plan, the landowner seek to subdivide the southern portion of the parcel to create 4 new lots. The balanced parcel will be maintained as ag lands and retain all existing structures and agricultural uses. The proposed lots align with the land use bylaw and have suitable development areas for single-family dwellings, similar to the existing single-family homes in the Highwood Meadows subdivision to the west. The proposed configuration sensitively integrates with the existing development and does not impact surrounding uses or negatively impact the existing agricultural operations. We were very concerned about Mr. Imler to the south, who runs a number of cows. We had a conversation with him and he provided no objections. Councillor Kendall at the larger lots allow for livestock units. So we're over 3 acres, so we can have livestock units on these lots. We intend to support the overall farming operations of Saskatoon Farms with this proposal. One of the questions that was asked by Councillor Kendall, and in fairness, it was maybe month 2 of her on the job, she'd said, could all of these lots remain in Saskatoon Farms' name? No, they cannot, because people need to mortgage their homes. They can't just pull $350,000 cash out of their jeans to build a house. So the titles will transfer. They will not remain in the Saskatoon Barrie name. And that is a fundamental. And I think I understand that council saying, well, we can't control that. We don't know for sure. I'm doing my best to explain the reasons, and these are the reasons. In terms of the existing conditions, I think Mrs. Chipchase did a really good job, and I don't want to repeat what she's done. The roof did collapse, and the mezzanine and barn addition had a DP issued that was lapsed. The barn has since been converted and is now used as employee housing, as Mrs. Chipchase had indicated. And all necessary building codes and safety code permits will be obtained to retain the converted barn and bring it into compliance as a secondary suite for the employees of the farm, and also allow for indoor storage of equipment. The arena structure will be brought into compliance and retained as storage for agricultural purposes, so large machinery storage over winter. This was all to be undertaken as a condition of approval. However, we were not approved. And my clients were significantly discouraged and upset by council's decision. So we've just hung on here until the appeal. Should the SDAB approve our application, we will be accepting of a condition requiring the building be brought into compliance and meet necessary requirements. This is the application history of that barn and arena. I think Mrs. Chipchase did a really good job, so I won't repeat any of this. She also gave you site photos, which are very similar to mine, so I won't belabor them. One of the things we're always looking for is existing natural features or crown claimable drainages. There was really nothing on this parcel of concern. The drainage in the northwest corner here is likely coming off the Highwood Meadows subdivision and dumping off all of that development and into this property. And stormwater management plans weren't a thing when Highwood Meadows was approved, so that would make sense. In terms of the servicing conditions, each new lot will be serviced by a groundwater well, and as we'd mentioned, only 2 new ones will need to be drilled. The groundwater reconnaissance report indicates that the groundwater has been recharging to suitable levels. All existing and new wells are required to meet the Water Act. Wells in the area are producing at sufficient rates to support residential developments, and the addition of 2 new wells is not anticipated to impact the water supply in this area. So it's been my experience over these past many years The top three reasons for country residential opposition is roads, water, and density. We had no concerns with water. There's 22 other residents on this quarter section. Not one person said my well is going to be affected. I have a concern about my well. There was none of that. This is a good area for groundwater wells. It is a serviceable area. It does not have any deficiencies in the record. And as you can see, the static water level over time is rising, which means that the aquifer is replenishing itself. It is not depleting. In terms of the access, again, Mrs. Chipchase did a really good job explaining that. We would be more than happy to do what Mr. Antle suggests in terms of constructing that road and doing an internal cul-de-sac bulb. However, the appearance of that looks like it's going to facilitate more subdivision in the balance of the ag land. So what I had tried to do here was provide a low intensity option for access that didn't suggest that the balance would be also subdivided in future. When you look at what Mr. Antle is suggesting in terms of extending the road, making a cul-de-sac bulb, that's very formalized. It will have to be a named and maintained internal road by the county. In this scenario, the county has zero maintenance obligations. So I would, we're at the board's direction here. Like, if you want that, we can accommodate it, no problem, if that's fine. If the board is concerned about the access right of way, I can show you other examples in the municipality where this has worked. These are the existing road conditions. 338th Avenue is stop controlled at 80th Street. We are also at the dead end of 338th Avenue. The top right is the dead end. This is on the bottom left, an approach looking from the second approach right, and then looking from the first approach left. So we have sight distance. We have a dust controlled road. I don't know what Mr. McHugh's definition of MRO is. Maintainable road oil is what that stood for. I think it's chip sealed here with a cold mix. In a minute, I'll let you talk. Thanks. In terms of the traffic considerations, all 4 additional lots would add a negligible amount of traffic to 338th Avenue. The traffic counts at Highway 2 and 338th have been summarized as below. And I will advise the board that in my evidence package, I showed you the traffic volumes from 2025 and all turns from 338th to Highway 2. So you can see how many people go north, how many people go straight across, how many people go south, just to provide additional evidence on the turning movements at 338th. And that is number 19 in your package. Based on the average daily traffic for the intersection, the additional traffic generated by 4 new lots would be negligible, less than 1% increase over the existing background traffic. We've provided the trip rates and all of the numbers. The average daily traffic on 338th is 1,100. In the summer, it's 1,130 vehicle trips. We are adding essentially 8 per day, and our hope is none of them go on 338th west. They will go 338th east into Saskatoon where they work. One of the things that concerned me about council's position with regard to adding traffic to 338th Avenue is they made no comment whatsoever when Okotoks proposed and then adopted the Thunderstone Junction Neighborhood Area Structure Plan. This document provides for interim servicing and immediate light industrial development on phase 1, which is everything around Integrity Post. That means that all of that traffic can occur within the town of Okotoks onto 338th on the west side of the highway with unabated, essentially. They will be required to provide a transportation offsite levy on an interim servicing capacity. They don't have to be connected to pipe. They don't have to have a deep utility structure. You can see they've predetermined where the storm goes. There was absolutely no objection or concern from the county on the record, and I provided confirmation of that in our correspondence with the town of Okotoks, which is in your package, number 20. I'm not going to talk about contributions. I had included it in case the county had brought this up. Councillor McHugh had suggested that additional contributions over and above the community sustainability fee were required here. I included Prairie versus Town of Okotoks to demonstrate to the board how those are legally incepted, although the county has said nothing about that at this hearing, so I will just pass through it. In terms of our engagement summary, we did an engagement mail out. We mailed 40 letters to neighbors. The letter that we mailed is in your evidence package, so you can read it. We received no objections, none, no calls, nothing. We mailed this October 31st, 2026, well in front of our public hearing. No responses received. I'm now going to run down the applicable legislation and hope that it helps the board in their decision making. And there's just as many cases in evidence supporting my position as there are supporting Mrs. Chipchase's. So I know what a difficult position the board is in here. Let's talk about South Saskatchewan Regional Plan alignment. Despite Section 618.3 of the Act, case law has established that the only regulatory details that are binding is and that's page 164 of the SSRP, and that certain sections are non-binding. And so I provided to you a decision that's not very complimentary to me, to be honest. It's the Hutterian Brethren of Summerland versus Vulcan County, which was one heck of an appeal board hearing. But in that decision, the LPRT said, look, we've been arguing about what agricultural is and isn't and how it's to be interpreted under the SSRP. And the board was very pointed in what they consider binding and non-binding in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. They said that to further clarify the express provisions of the regional plan that are essentially the regulatory details are binding. Everything else, including the introduction, the strategic plan, and the implementation plan, are non-binding. So these are the exceptions. These are the things that are binding. General air quality, conservation areas, conserved land. And if you look at all of that, it all requires Alberta environment approvals. And had we had any binding effect under the SSRP, we would be in front of the LPRT and not this board, because we would have had an Alberta environment approval for you, but we don't. So the SSRP is a motherhood document. It talks about agricultural protection in the entire province of Alberta. It makes distinctions between irrigated and non-irrigated lands. The non-binding strategy section does talk about what municipalities are to do. So I will talk a little bit about that in terms of our response to it. The municipalities are expected to identify areas where agricultural activities, including extensive and intensive agricultural and associated activities, should be the primary land use in the region. They did this. It's called the growth management strategy, and it calls for this area to be the growth engine of the municipality. 820, limit the fragmentation of ag lands and their premature conversion to non-ag uses, especially within areas where agricultural has been identified as a primary land use in the region. Municipal planning policies and tools that promote the efficient use of land should be used where appropriate to support this strategy. Again, the growth management strategy does not consider agriculture the primary use in this area, and the quarter section was allowed to subdivide into 22 lots, reducing and eliminating its agricultural future in proximity to a cluster country residential development. 821, employ appropriate planning tools and direct non-agricultural subdivision development to areas where such development will not constrain agricultural activities or lower quality of agricultural lands. The GMS does this, and the ag protection policies do this. along with the MDP policies that direct fragmentation to already fragmented quarter sections, which this is. It says also to minimize the conflict between intensive agricultural operations and incompatible land uses. Intensive livestock, intensive operations usually require NRCB approvals. There is no confined feeding approval in this area. There's no confined feeding operation. We do not adversely affect any ag operations. In fact, we didn't hear from any ag operators saying that. And we assist an ag operation called the Saskatoon Berry Farm stay afloat with workforce proximity. Not to mention the added tourism, economic development, and employment offered by this business to the county. One thing I find striking when I go there is they have a tourist photo booth, and you can get your picture taken, and it says, I was at the Saskatoon Berry Farm. And on the bottom, it says Foothills County. Does not say Okotoks, does not say High River, it says Foothills County. They're very proud Foothills County residents. In terms of the growth management strategy, one of the reasons for refusal was that the application did not align with Section 3.3, supporting agriculture in the GMS, which discourages fragmentation of agricultural land. I say we are in the Central District, which is anticipated to experience significant development and additional intensification, and currently contains substantial country residential development. It supports employment in the county, this particular project. The suitability and location is contextually appropriate with the neighboring country residential uses and is in alignment with the county's vision to accommodate most of the growth in this district. It is not the East District, the Southwest District, or the South Central District where agriculture is a priority. It maintains the rural character by equating parcel sizes in the area. And it is near infrastructure. That's why it's in the Central District. The Central District has the highways, it has the urban centers, it has what's now the regional water pipeline going to Okotoks. It's a sub-regional system, so no one else can touch it, but there's a lot of activity in that district. The proposed application will not have any adverse impacts on agricultural land, nor does it conflict with any agricultural uses. No objections were received, and we're intending to accommodate staff and family of the farm who will support the agricultural operation. I won't read chapter and verse what the Central District Growth Management Strategy says, but there's some things that, as Councillor McHugh has said, county has not done as part of that GMS. And that includes prioritizing the Central District for a district plan. So one of the things was, where do they want growth in that district and what does it look like? There's been lots of sporadic discussions about where a hamlet growth area should be around Heritage Point. There's been lots of discussions about what happens on the east end of 552 and what's going to happen with 80th Street and 32nd Street when the overpass comes and the highway. Intensification follows in that infrastructure. I don't think that when the overpass comes, growth will be diminished. I think quite the opposite. So I really don't understand why any of this stuff hasn't been done, but it's kind of left us in a position where we are project by project, site by site, evaluating them against the GMS. In terms of supporting agriculture, Section 3.3 of the GMS says we are supporting growth of on-farm operations that result in value added to farm produce, such as packing, processing, cooking, tasting, or farm gate sales. So these proposed lots, because they can support an animal unit, can sustain livestock, can support gate sales, which is hens and bees mostly. And there's a guy across who does printed t-shirts. And to provide workforce proximity with housing opportunities to support an existing farm-to-table agricultural operation. In terms of alignment with the municipal development plan, the reason for refusal said we did not align with the goals and objectives of the ag section and specifically policy 2. Merit, in our opinion, is that we believe we do align with the MDP and the policies by directing growth to a quarter section that has experienced significant fragmentation. It is compatible with the surrounding residential parcels in its context and the existing land uses on the quarter section. In this case, the lots are similar in size to neighboring parcels. It maintains the country residential character of the area by going with a parcel size similar to those already in place. And we maintain the agricultural integrity by maintaining an 80-acre balance. We're supporting a farming operation by this development and continuing to allow employees and family to live in close proximity to their work. We're minimizing the loss of unfragmented ag land. In this case, this quarter section has been developed intensively. In terms of the merit for this application, policy 3, the proposed application does not impact ag lands negatively or have any negative offsite impacts. In fact, it will help further a continue an existing ag operation in the Saskatoon Dairy Farm. It aligns with the guidance and policy contained within the approved plans and planning hierarchy. The use of lands in the vicinity are not negatively impacted. The proposed subdivisions proposes to seamlessly integrate into its context. And I think had anyone felt their view was obstructed, that we were conflicting with their way of life or their privacy, they would have shown up. There's been no negative impact expressed on existing ag uses, and the site is not located in the East or South District where agriculture is the predominant use. One of the concerns was cumulative reasons for refusals was residential policies 3 and 9, suggesting that the application didn't address cumulative effects of development, suitability of lands for development, and efficient use of land. Mrs. Chipchase didn't talk about any of this because the lots are flat and they're can very easily accommodate the uses that are being proposed on them. One of the things that's difficult to argue is cumulative effects. Cumulative effects, as we understand it, has no definition in the land use bylaw or the MDP. What we decided it is the combined effect of past, present, and reasonably foreseeable activities over time on the environment. Foothills County's MDP talks about it, but it doesn't define it. The county decision gave no indication of how this development would have a negative cumulative effect. Certainly didn't present any evidence today that it would have a negative cumulative effect, and no concerns were received again. Approved subdivision would be subject to further technical studies had we done this properly and had it approved at council, which includes proof of water, sanitary septic or PSTS test, a lot level storm plan, and an engineered building envelope. I did include a case for you to look at, and it's item number 23 on your evidence list. And this is a precedent decision made with regard to cumulative effects of a proposed subdivision. And this was the Smith and Reckdahl decision that the MGB, which is now the LPRT, had made. They said, respecting the subdivision approving authority's concerns about the proposed non-compliance with cumulative effects, the MGB finds the subdivision authority did not specify what the concerns are. The proposed subdivision complies with the density provisions of the MD's planning documents, including the direction of development within the central district of the GMS, and AT, Alberta Transportation, also did not raise any traffic concerns. Thus, the MGB finds no evidence illustrating the proposed subdivision would have a cumulative negative effect. These are the exact same qualities that this project brings forward. In fact, there's nothing new required to be constructed here. No new roads, 22 similar lots, no objections from neighbors saying we have too many of these, nothing from ag operators saying I can't run my cows if you do this. So there is no net negative cumulative effect. Efficiency of use of land and suitability for residential development. We are utilizing existing infrastructure. We're maintaining rural character. We have parcels in a similar size to those already present on the quarter section, and the balance is 80 acres, which reflects continued agricultural preservation, but all you can probably do is hay it with that many people living on the quarter. Proposed policy 338, the municipal road access. So 338 provides adequate existing road infrastructure to access to the proposed subdivision. Public Works made no comment about 338th not being able to handle this traffic or any comment with regard to upgrading 338th. So infrastructure check. Policy 9, proposed lots provide suitable development area within the building envelopes for single-family dwellings and can be serviced with individual groundwater wells. We've actually shown the board that 2 of them already have groundwater wells, and they're working fine. This will not negatively impact the existing community, and these sites are flat with no development constraints. I'm going to dig into the land use bylaw because I know that's where the rubber meets the road in this appeal. The application aligns with the purpose and intent of the agricultural district, which promotes agricultural land uses by encouraging the growth and diversification of existing agricultural operations on the subject parcel. Diversification isn't defined in the land use bylaw, but if you look at the kind of things that they talk about, it's honey and eggs and gate sales are also considered diversity in agriculture. We just got a winery approved in Gladys Ridge. That's diversification of agriculture, and that's on a 20 CR parcel. So that's, I mean, the zoning is almost immaterial to the fact that you're running chickens or you're selling gate sales. You don't have to be ag zoned for that. The proposed lots will support a livestock unit, as I'd mentioned, and we're not contradicting the uses prescribed in the district. The only non-compliance is what Ms. Shipchase had indicated, which is the section 12161 and 12162A, which is you need to be granted an approval for a land use amendment, and then your density is varied by that amendment. Now, this is a standard. It is not a use. It is a standard. Standards can be varied by the appeal board, and you may grant under the Municipal Government Act an approval for authorized uses, even though the subdivision doesn't conform to the development or the subdivision standards imposed in the bylaw. And that's in Planning Law and Practice, section 223A, subdivision approvals. Now, if we look at the alignment for country residential, I think there's a couple of things that surprised me with Mrs. Chipchase's overview. So I will try to clarify that. One of the things that she'd suggested was home-based business type 2. There's no business being run here. That permit had lapsed. There's no appetite to run a business here. I think we will come back with the secondary suite detached DP and indoor cold storage for Saskatoon farms within the arena. There's no equine facility being run here. There isn't a horse on the property. Mr. McHugh had said in his deliberations, which is why we included it, that there was a horse farm here and that they had an equine approval. They don't, and that's not what's happening. He was then corrected in terms of what is going on here. It isn't what he had told council it was, so that concerned us. The subject site is suitable for residential development as it's a listed permitted use under both ag and CR. The proposed lots are intended to accommodate a single family dwelling, which is also in the CR and ag district. The proposed lots will be serviced by individual wells, and we're not over density. So one of the things that Mrs. Chipchase also added was a dugout. I don't know why we need a permit for the dugout. It's been there forever and it meets the requirements of the Water Act for an agricultural dugout with we're not requiring a permit. So, and I know they retroactively have tried to permit those now. And if that's what they want, we can add that as a condition.
Ms. Buehner? Right here, Brad, Chairman. May I interrupt briefly? You have provided a tremendous amount of information prior to this hearing. You've presented well other information in this hearing at the moment. Due to constraints, due to time, we've reviewed the package. There'll be a chance to offer final comments as well too. May I ask you to summarize as briefly as you can, what council may have missed in making its decision to refuse this application. Can you summarize for us what you expect, what council may have misrepresented or misunderstood, and also be very specific in what you're asking this board to do today, if I may ask you to do that at this moment? Thank you.
Sorry if I'm boring you, but I do have to go.
That's
through
not the comment I was making,
these.
Ms. Buhner. It was the, this is an extensive package that we've received, which we've all reviewed. What we would really like to hear from the board, and I'm speaking on behalf and I hope I'm helping you as well too, is if you could summarize what you may think that the council may have gotten wrong and what you expect and what you are asking of the board today, that would be very helpful for us.
Certainly, and I intend to do that on my concluding slides. So if I may continue, because I have cross-referenced every piece of evidence. So if I may continue, I'd really like to do that, and I will answer your questions in my conclusion. Is that okay?
May I ask how much longer it will take?
I have 10 more slides, sir. I didn't really understand that we were under any time constraint here.
It's not that. We are here to, we've reviewed the information you're presenting as well. You're giving us a dialogue to information we already have within our package. It's very well researched, very well thought out. We certainly appreciate that. But what I and the board are looking for is if you could summarize what is perhaps council has misinterpreted or what the issue is and what you are asking the board to do today, that is what we're going to base our decision on. So if you could help us, that's my request.
You have to wait.
Maybe another way to describe it is if you could distill this voluminous information that we have in front of us. We understand the positioning, but if you could help us distill, summarize so that it would enable us to consider that information.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I interrupt for just a moment? I'm wondering if I could just ask for just a brief recess from the board. I think maybe because of the time, we could have just a quick 2-minute break.
If acceptable, I'd like to call for a brief recess. Let's say for 5 minutes. It's currently 10:25, so we'll reconvene at 10:30. At the moment, I will recess this hearing and we will resume in 5 minutes. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us for a brief recess. Ms. Budner, let me restate. I would like you to continue to present your information. Please remain specific to the evidence that you want to present, and limit your comments to others that, including council or Ms. Chipchase. Can you please continue to present the balance of your slides, and we will begin again. Or sorry, we'll continue on from here for you to present the rest of your information. And again, I advise you to remain presenting the information as evidence that you have prepared for us. Thank you.
I feel quite derailed by this, but okay. Not quite sure what I'm doing wrong, so I'm just going to continue.
Yep, thank you.
Agriculture general is defined in the land use bylaw as areas of land for the raising of crops, rearing of livestock, provided the density of the operation does not exceed 1 animal unit for 3 acres of land. Agricultural support services is defined as the use of land, buildings, and structures for the purpose of supplying goods, materials, and services directly and primarily to the agricultural industry. This would include sale and storage of seed, fertilizer, chemical products, fuel, and agricultural machinery. I would say that also should include families, because without families, there is no farm. I would like in this moment to provide the board with the reasons for which they can make this decision in the affirmative under the Municipal Government Act. This also will require clarification by precedent of the interpretation of 12.6.1.A and B, which is the crux of the issue here. The municipality had suggested that the application was contrary to the Municipal Government Act, Section 654(1). They gave their reasons as to why they felt that way. I'd like to give my reasons as to why I feel the opposite. The suitability of the application. So 6541 says a subdivision authority must not approve an application for subdivision approval unless the land is proposed to be subdivided, is suitable for the purpose in which the subdivision is intended. So this land is suitable for the purpose for which it is intended. Each lot is intended to accommodate a single-family dwelling. Subdivision will not interfere with agricultural operations and would not negatively impact water, will not unduly impact traffic, noise, or have any other off-site impacts. It'll seamlessly integrate into the neighborhood, and again, no letters of objection. So how is it unsuitable? In terms of the policy alignment, the proposed subdivision aligns with the SSRP and MDP, as I've tried to show you, and aligns with prescribed uses in the land use bylaw. And it also aligns with the purpose and intent of the ag district. Under 680, the board can hear an appeal. In determining it, you have to have regard to statutory plans, must conform with the uses of the land referred to in the land use bylaw, which we do conform to the uses, must be consistent with the land use policies, which we are, because we are directing development on fragmented quarters, which is what the MDP directs us to do. Be consistent with the land use policies, which are the SSRP and the provincial land use policies. Have regard, but not bound by the subregs. There's no subreg applicability in this application. You can confirm, revoke, or vary the decision and may add to the decision. So I am asking the board to allow the appeal and overturn the decision of county. Now I want to talk about this section of the land use bylaw. Would that be appropriate, Mr. Chairman? This 12.161?
I encourage you to continue presenting all the information you'd like to today.
Thank you, sir. This is the issue. This section which is a standard and not a use, so it can be varied. 12.161. So had council approved the land use bylaw, the parcels would of course comply with the country residential district, and they didn't. So I've provided some cases to the board, both from the local SDAB and the Municipal Government Board, which explain how they interpreted 12 0.6.1 and allowed for a subdivision despite the fact that council had refused the land use. One of the things that says in the decisions, and I think it's quite important to recognize, that the LPRT has said that to require the land use bylaw amendment prior to subdivision is to subvert the subdivision process designed by legislation. And that's in the decisions in front of you. And subversion is an interesting word for the LPRT to use, and their lawyers write their decisions. It means to undermine, damage, overthrow established systems, authorities, and institutions. The suggestion in those decisions is that in order that to require a parcel size amendment to then approve a subdivision is subversive in its intent and undermines the Municipal Government Act. This land use bylaw of Foothills County is one of the only ones that still has this provision. So I'll leave the evidence to you. You said you've had a look at it. The balance will continue to be agricultural, and it meets the minimum of the district. The proposed subdivision, one of these in Palmer, so Palmer, which you have, the proposed subdivision meets all the land use bylaw requirements except 12161. And the MGV found the requirement for bylaw amendment prior to subdivision is subversive of the Act's subdivision process. So there's a second one where the board has said that's a subversive process. To require a land use amendment prior to subdivision is to subvert the subdivision process as designed by legislation. So that's all in front of you in the evidence provided. Parcel size rationale, this was in 108-2038, which has been provided to you in evidence. In this case, it said the proposed parcel doesn't conform to the minimum parcel size of 21 acres. However, the MGB finds its case is appropriate to deviate from the minimum lot size, recognizing that the minimum lot size under the LUB is 21. The amount of the subject lands are not identified. The subject lands are ill-suited for the types of agricultural pursuits that require large parcels, and its subdivision will not impede any other agricultural pursuits in the area. Therefore, the MGB finds that the size may be varied in this case without offending the use provisions of the land use bylaw. And that is a critical interpretation, and that was on Russ Deacon's subdivision, and I'll show you what happened after. Again, another subversion slide. So what happens then if an appeal board approves a country residential subdivision on a piece of land that's zoned ag? Typically, if a decision is overturned on appeal, council will administratively amend the zoning such that it conforms with the CR district. This was done both with Elmer Johnson. So if I can point, this little parcel here was approved on appeal, and it was administratively zoned country residential. And the same happened with Russ Deacon, which was the numbered company decision in your appeal board package. I didn't attend a public hearing to make these country residential. They were done administratively. To prove that, I have provided the board a county redesignation, administrative redesignation, and number 25, which is a staff report post-approval of an SDAB decision, which revised the zoning on the parcel that the SDAB created. Now, typically, in assessing and analyzing all of the decisions I've provided to you today, the board is asking very similar questions, typical questions that they ask. One is, does the proposed subdivision comply with the SSRP? And I'd say yes. We're retaining ag land, 80 acres, and the quarter is fragmented, and we support ag business with the Saskatoon farm, and there are no applicable regulatory details, which are the binding sections of the SSRP. Does the proposed subdivision comply with the MDP? Yes, it's located on a quarter section that has 22 lots. We do not negatively impact the existing ag users, and we do not introduce land uses that are not already apparent in the area. So there's nothing new about what we're bringing here. There's country residential parcels in the area. We're adding more. There should be nothing wrong with that. It's not a use that is not to be seen. Does it meet the intent of policy 2 to maintain the integrity of ag land? Yeah, we retain 80 acres of hayland. The proposal supports an ag business by allowing workforce proximate housing and does not adversely affect agricultural use of the property because the land we're proposing to subdivide is not used agriculturally. And the sites are all flat, can support animal units. If not, should the MGB exercise its discretion, notwithstanding the non-compliance? We've provided multiple examples where the SDAB have allowed and the appeal created CR lots without CR zoning having been provided. The case law and the provincial appeal boards have stated that the current land use bylaw subverts the administrative process of the MGA, and we have provided evidence that the county will administratively zone parcels post issuance of the SDAB's decision. What does the proposed subdivision, comply with the land use bylaw? Yes, it does. Complies with the district standards and the district purpose. Specifically, does the proposal meet the uses and standards and the intent of the agricultural district? Yes. We've overviewed this for the board. The standards can be varied as you can consider them, but are not bound by them, and they can be interpreted at the discretion of the board. Does the proposal meet 12.161, which requires a land use bylaw amendment? No. However, we have advised that interpretation of the section of the bylaw is subversive and the MGA, under the MGA, and that this standard can be varied. Okay, it is a standard, can be varied. If not, should the MGB exercise its discretion, notwithstanding the non-compliance, we're suggesting and requesting that yes, you allow this appeal because we meet the land use bylaw expectations in every regard, and we're requesting that the appeal board allow our approval. I found it interesting that the county had suggested they provided conditions because I didn't see any in evidence and there was none in the staff report. I don't know where they are. So I provided some conditions because I didn't see them. And of course, the board can set their own conditions. But I would have liked to see them so I could tell you what I did and didn't like about them. Now, I'm going to ask Austin to say a few words, and then I will do a conclusion that answers what we may have missed and specifically what we're asking the board to do today.
Thank you guys for your time and consideration. And I just want to say, yeah, we think it's a critical part of our business growth and development at the farm. And I think we provide a lot of value to the county, and we love the Foothills County, where I think it's the best place to be in Canada. And yeah, my mom had talked to someone in transportation last week, actually. Apparently 338 is getting an upgrade, that road up to the farm. So that's good news. And also we have some word that that overpass is being fast tracked or pushed forward aggressively. So that's also good news for everything. And yeah, realistically, this isn't really a massive development we're trying to do. We just want to build a few places for our staff and have opportunities for them to live close and enhance our ability to grow and create a happy place for everyone. Thanks, guys.
It is a happy place. What council may have missed, my suggestion to the board is that, in our opinion, we are consistent with the policy documents, and I've tried to spell that out with you today. And I understand that we can't look at the user of the lot. So yeah, it's a lot, and it'll outlive me, it'll outlive you. And it may not be owned by Saskatoon Berry Farm employees, and it could be bought by anyone. And I understand all of that, but this isn't what we're here talking about. We're trying to be as transparent as possible as to why these parcels are being created. They are there to help sustain and support an existing agricultural operation that has done great things for the county. One of the questions that the county said was, well, there's servicing concerns. I don't see that. We have an excellent road to this development. We are at the dead end of that road. We have tremendously good water wells here. The evidence reflects that. We are on a quarter section that has already been fragmented. The evidence reflects that. The land use bylaw requirement by virtue of interpretation can be considered subversive and is just a standard. It is not a hard and fast rule, which can be varied. So it's just like if I came in here for something that was 13 meters in height instead of 12, that's a standard. The board can vary, just like this one. It's under 21 acres. That's a standard. The board can vary. And what I've tried to show the board is if they do allow our appeal and provide us with a subdivision, that there has been administratively retroactive zonings on the parcels that have been approved. And I've shown you 2 as evidence, and I've provided you a staff report in evidence that shows what the county does with the SDAB decisions once they're issued. I don't think you need to worry as much about CR versus ag. I think you need to worry more about if this is the right fit in the right place under the policy context. And we're suggesting that yes, it is, and that we meet all the requirements. 12.1.6.1 is the only thing we do not meet, and that is a standard you can vary. With that, I will close. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Ben. Through the chair, Christine, the staff that you're now housing in the barn, if you want to call it such, are they individuals? Are they families? What is your purpose of attempting to go into parcels and individual homes versus what you have now?
Thank you for the question, Board Member Mills. I'll ask Mr. Hammer to respond through the chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just, yeah, it's just a single family in there, and the building is, well, it is in fantastic shape, but we are going to get it into compliance. But yeah, ultimately, we're very short on space at the farm and housing locations. So that's also why it's really important. But
So to elaborate on who would be in the homes on the parcels?
oh, yeah, we have like some wonderful families like from Ukraine and also just locals that want to live closer to the farm. And it's just important for us to realistically expand, and that land isn't functional for any valued purpose other than I think this development would be fantastic for us. And also for me, I have a young family and I would like to get a parcel for myself as well too. But yeah.
Does that answer the question through the chair, Councilor? Board Member Mills? Does that answer the, I'm sorry, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Board members, any further questions? I have another follow-up question. Has there been any information presented today that is different or has been added aside from the original application in front of council? So let me rephrase the question again, perhaps. When the original application was made to council for the redesignation, has there been any new information that you've presented to us today?
No, I think the facts of the case remain the same in the way they were presented. However, because we're in an appeal, which is a quasi-judicial proceeding, I also need to provide you the legal underpinnings for your decision-making, and that is new.
I certainly appreciate that. That was not my question. So thank you. My next question, though, will be exactly looking for that answer you're about to provide. Can you summarize again for this board as for a clarification of the basis for this appeal?
Certainly. So the county provided reasons for refusal in writing, which I've directly addressed. My take from the county's presentation today was 12.1.6.1 was what they were focused on. Didn't hear anything about site suitability or any other thing. And so what I've tried to do in my evidence and my materials is provide the board with direction from other boards as to how 12.1.6.1 can be interpreted and varied in your decision making.
Thank you. Board members, anything further? No. Okay, with that, I'll return back to you, Ms. Chip Chase, for final closing comments.
I'm going to try to share my screen again here. Like, maybe. Swap my view again. Oh, wait. Sorry, it's just taking me a second to get organized here. All right. So in closing, I summarize the reasons the county respectfully requests the board uphold the decision to refuse the subdivision application where the subject lands remain designated agricultural district and the proposed subdivision would require country residential district land use in Foothills County. It also clarifies that a subdivision and development appeal board may hear an appeal of a subdivision decision, but it does not have the authority to amend the land use bylaw or redesignate lands from agricultural district to country residential district. A key point to consider is subdivision should be refused where the application depends on a land use redesignation that has not been approved by council. In Foothills County, land use redesignation is a separate legislative process involving an amendment to the land use bylaw. Subdivision approval cannot be used to achieve, substitute for, or compel a redesignation from agricultural district to country residential district. With respect to reasons to refuse the subdivision, the current land use designation does not support the proposed subdivision. The lands are not designated agricultural district. If the proposed lots are intended to function as country residential parcels, the application is premature unless and until council can approve the land use bylaw amendment redesignating those lands. Additionally, the subdivision approval would be inconsistent with the land use bylaw framework. Foothills County identified the land use bylaw as the regulatory document that governs what may occur on property based on its zoning. A subdivision that creates lots for a use or parcel pattern that is not supported by the current district would undermine that regulatory framework. As well, redesignation is a council decision, not a subdivision condition. The subdivision authority should not approve a subdivision on the assumption that council may later redesignate the lands. If the intended development requires country residential district, the applicant must first obtain the required land use amendment through the proper process. Further, the proposal is in conflict with agricultural land preservation and rural planning objectives. Where lands are designated agricultural district, subdivision into country residential district parcels may fragment agricultural land, introduce incompatible rural residential expectations, and reduce the long-term viability of agricultural use unless supported by the applicable statutory plans and council-approved redesignation. The application is also considered premature without required planning approvals. Foothills County materials describe land development as requiring planning steps such as an outline plan approval, land use redesignation, subdivision, and development agreement requirements. Where those prerequisite approvals have not been completed, subdivision approval would be premature. And with regards to servicing access, stormwater reserves, and compatibility matters, they may not be resolved. A country residential subdivision requires adequate road access, water supply, wastewater suitability, stormwater management, reserve dedication, or deferral and compatibility review. If these matters are unresolved or cannot be addressed appropriate under the current agricultural district, refusal is supportable. With respect to limits on the SDAB's authority, the county respectfully provides that the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board's jurisdiction is limited to the appeal powers that are granted under the Municipal Government Act. It may hear certain subdivision appeals and may confirm, vary, or substitute a decision within its statutory authority. However, it is not council and cannot pass or amend a bylaw. A redesignation from agricultural district to country residential district requires a land use bylaw amendment, which is a legislative decision of council following the required statutory process. Accordingly, the SDAB cannot redesignate the land, cannot direct council to redesignate the land, and should not approve a subdivision that effectively depends on redesignation where that redesignation has not occurred. The appropriate sequence is land use redesignation by council first, then subdivision consideration by the subdivision authority. So in summary of the closing comments, the following points that the board should consider: the county's land use bylaw governs permitted land uses and subdivision expectations based on their districts. Country residential subdivision is not merely a technical subdivision matter. It depends on land being designated appropriately for that form of development. The appeal board's role is not to make municipal policy or legislative zoning decisions. Approving the subdivision before redesignation would bypass council's public bylaw amendment process. If the applicant wishes to pursue country residential development, the correct step is an application to redesignate from A to CR. With that, the county respectfully asks the board to refuse the application. As the proposed subdivision is not consistent with the current agricultural district designation of the subject lands and would require a redesignation to country residential district before the proposed parcel could properly be considered. The Subdivision and Development Appeal Board does not have the authority to amend the land use bylaw or redesignate the lands. Redesignation is a legislative matter for council. In the absence of an approved redesignation and any required supporting planning approvals, and the subdivision is premature and inconsistent with the applicable planning framework. And this would conclude my presentation, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to ask Councillor R.D. McHugh and Technologist Antle if they have anything to add. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Entley.
Thank you, Ms. Chipchase. I'd like to just quickly address the proposed access options and county road construction standards. So within the application, there was a proposed 30 by 30 meter surveyed out road plan, which does not comply with the county's road construction standards. And as such, the county would not take it over for maintenance. Namely, the approaches are too close to the intersection. There would not be an appropriate turnaround for county equipment, and we would have to send a grader to maintain the gravel roadway. The county's road construction standards would be preferred, as it would allow for efficient maintenance, and I have nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor McHugh, final comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Four separate titles, they do not ensure that they, as highlighted by the applicant, that they remain in control of the Saskatoon farm and enable the ability to have workers living in close proximity to the Saskatoon farm. There are policies in place that accommodate dwellings of this sort. There's one that's on the title that hopefully gets brought into compliance, but there are multiple farm operations in the municipality that have temporary dwellings for workers on them. And I can't remember one ever being turned down. So I have a little trouble there. What did I say? I would say there are existing policies to accommodate the situation presented by the applicant that do not involve acreages in four separate titles. If 338 is good and That's a good road and it's safe for crossing. Well, we're only 1.5 miles from the town of Okotoks, which has more than adequate residential places for rent and for sale in close proximity to the Saskatoon farm to satisfy that need. Highview Meadows is a cluster residential development, which is endorsed. Looks the one immediately adjacent parcel looks like the first parcel out being into it. And then we have a complete cluster residential development in Highview Meadows. What we have here is basically 4 one-offs onto 338th with 1,000 vehicles. So while traffic may just be driving to work, I guess they won't have to go to town for food at some point and go west. 80th Street is the alternate access to the Saskatoon farm, remains as MRO, and been pushing to see that 80th Street does get improved, keeps getting pushed down the road. I remain hopeful that one day that access does get improved. Fragmentation of land. Difficult to say that we are directing development to already fragmented parcels. District plans do not exist. It is not clear where growth is to be directed. It is objective of the MDP to protect agricultural land, placing 4 parcels in front of viable ag operation. Topography is good, water is adequate, can all be farmed. The putting 4 parcels in front of it, the agricultural equipment is all bigger, just makes it difficult to get in and off the road. From a council perspective, these are 4 one-off parcels, not a cluster residential development with adequate servicing. And the municipality has to do better. The strains on the municipality for keeping roads fixed up continues to grow due to continued fragmentation willy-nilly everywhere. Thanks.
Thank you to the board members. Are there any clarifying questions of either 3? All right, hearing none, hearing none, I'll look to you for your final and closing comments. And also as an addendum to that, please ensure that if there's any information that has been missed in your presentation or you'd like to leave with us, make sure you include that here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did provide the secretary with a digital version and a printed version of our presentation to you today. Equally, I would like a copy of the municipality's evidence, which was their presentation today, in fairness. We aren't asking for the board to redesignate. We know that that's not what you're doing. We also understand that, yes, a land use should be in place, and that is the procedure we followed. However, there is no appeal to a refused land use, and the only way to do it is to make a subdivision application. So I did follow the process. It was raised that there was no area structure plan, no outline plan. We were never asked for that. There wasn't one for Highwood Meadows. There isn't an ASP on the quarter. There is not an ASP request, was not when the planning department evaluated this at the land use stage. So I think that's a bit of a flyer because we were never asked to do it. There's lots of instances in this municipality where you have land like this that cannot function agriculturally because of the presence of country residential development. Councillor in his rebuttal had said that we're just doing 4 one-offs. Well, and that there shouldn't be 4 lots in front of this ag land. Well, there's 8 lots beside it today on the west side. So I don't understand the complexity of that at all. There is no complexity. Mr. Antle had suggested that the approaches were not spaced correctly. However, the Highwood Meadows approach is west of this onto 338th, and we are a significant distance, I think it's 150 meters from it. He did not quantify how that is too close to the intersection when the Highwood Meadows approach is closer to 338th and 80th Street than we are. We believe that we have good access. We are compatible. I still haven't been pointed to the conditions of subdivision, so I'm going to request that if the board would like, they could certainly add the standard conditions of a stormwater management plan, which is a lot level program, of a development permit submission to the satisfaction of the planning officer for the secondary suite and the cold storage, that the engineered building envelopes be provided, and that we follow the access requirements at the direction of Public Works. Fine. One thing that hasn't been talked about is reserves. Typically, you will see a condition of reserves in a subdivision approving authorities' conditions. As I did not see that, I'm going to request a combination of cash and deferral. And that's typically what happens here. So for those who don't understand that, I'm suggesting that when you subdivide, you owe reserves, you owe the municipality 10% of your land based on an assessed value. And typically that assessed value is provided by the tax department. We would pay cash on that 10% of the land we're developing, and a deferred reserve caveat would be placed on the 80 acres for any future development reserves owing. The policy also is if you owe more than 2 acres, you are required to provide a physical land dedication. We do not owe more than 2 acres here, so we did not provide a physical land dedication. So we're certainly happy to accept that. I think that lastly, the municipality is suggesting that there's limits on your authority, that you can't redesignate. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to look at this subdivision holistically, to look at where it's placed, to understand that Austin wants to live on the same quarter as his brother, and they have people who start at 5 in the morning on the farm. And if they live in the city or they live in Okotoks, it's just a much longer day for them. There's a lot of interest in living and working in this context. This family and this business and the needs of this business don't always follow the land use bylaw to the letter of the law, and that's why there's appeal processes. So I hope I have provided the board with enough information to provide a decision in our favor and allow our appeal. Austin, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say thanks for your time and consideration again. And yeah, I really am hopeful because I think this would be really beneficial for everyone involved. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for clarifying questions. I do have one. At the very beginning of your commentary, you mentioned that something to the effect of there isn't a in-place progress or process for this type of application. So that's why you submitted a subdivision appeal. Can you clarify that and explain that for me, please?
Yes, certainly. So in her closing comments, the county's planning officer suggested that there's a correct process to follow, and that's submit a land use application and then get your subdivision. And at the land use, they would evaluate everything. And you can see that in our evidence. The land use report is there and the evaluations are there. However, there is no appeal in legislation to land use rezoning failures. The only appeal is by making a subdivision application, which is a springboard to the Subdivision Development Appeal Board, and that is your avenue of appeal on any land use rezoning refusal. So there's no way a planner or anyone can appeal a land use rezoning refusal anywhere. It's not in legislation. You have to make the subdivision application to get your appeal heard. That's what I was getting at, sir. Does that help?
Thank you. Board members, are there any clarifying questions? Hearing none, I will start the process to close this hearing. The process that takes place at this moment is the board will deliberate on all the information that was presented to us today, including the package that was provided to us prior to this hearing. We will consider absolutely no other information that is derived outside of this hearing today. And with that, I will adjourn and close this hearing, and thank you all for your time and your participation today.